Okay. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamana Tira Vanachari. Yamana Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Yeah, all right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So, on this 12th day of October 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. Text number 18, near the bottom of page 326. You may have a different book. So you look for the verse number. It may not be on 326 for you. Just a warning. Okay. Udara Sarva evaite Jnani Tu Atmaeva Me Matam Astitaha Sa Hiyuktatma Mam Evanutamam Katim. Okay. Udara sarva evaite Jnani tvatmaeva me matam Astita sahiyuktatma Mamevanutamam gatim. Udara sarva evaite Jnani tvatmaeva me matam Astita sahiyuktatma Mamevanutamam gatim. Udara sarva evaite Jnani tvatmaeva me matam Astita sahiyuktatma Mamevanutamam gatim. Go ahead.
Udara sarva evaite
Udara sarva evaite
Jnani tav atmaeva me matam
Jnani tvatmaeva me matam
Asista sahi yuktatma
Astita sahiyuktatma
Mam ivanut nutamam gatim.
Mamevanutamam gatim. Gene, you want to try? Not yet? Okay. Anyone else over here? All right, go for it.
Udara sarva evaite
Udara sarva evaite
Jnani tvatmaeva me matam
Jnani tvatmaeva me matam
Astita sahi yuktatma
Astita sahiyuktatma Mamevanutamam gatim. Bhajamandala. Udara sarva evaite Jnani tvatmaeva me matam Astita sahiyuktatma Mamevanutamam gatim. Udara, magnanimous. Sarve, all. Eva, certainly. Ete, these. Jnani, one who is in knowledge. Two, but. Atma, Eva, just like myself. Me, my. Matam, opinion. Astitaha, situated. Saha, he, certainly. Yukta Atma, engaged in devotional service. Mam, in me. Eva, certainly. Anuttamam, the highest. Gatim, destination. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, all these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Purport. It is not that devotees who are less complete in knowledge are not dear to the Lord. The Lord says that all are magnanimous because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma, or great soul. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord because there is an exchange of affection. Out of affection, they ask the Lord for some material benefit, and when they get it, they become so satisfied that they also advance in devotional service. But the devotee in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord, because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with love and devotion. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.468, the Lord says, Sadhavo vidiham mahyam sadhunam vidiyam tvaham madanyate najananti naham tebhyo managapi. The devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the hearts of the devotees. The devotee does not know anything beyond me, and I also cannot forget the devotee. There is a very intimate relationship between me and the pure devotees. Pure devotees in full knowledge are never out of spiritual touch, and therefore they are very much dear to me. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So Krishna is continuing to describe 4 kinds of pious people who do approach him, who do surrender to him. He had this verse that Prabhupada would quote practically more than any other in this chapter, text 15, where he's saying that these are the people who don't surrender to me, who are against me. This is text 15. Namandashkudano mudha papadyante naradama mahya parita jnana asuram bapamashita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. And it's not that there can't be some overlap in these categories. Someone can be an out-and-out demon and also a muda, a fool and a rascal. But these are general categories, and there's a long purport here that Prabhupada describes each category. And so Prabhupada was, because he's going around the world, he's giving so many lectures, he preaches to groups of non-devotees on the Sunday feasts or big festivals and all these things. And so he's just quoting Krishna, and he says, if you don't surrender to Krishna, which is in your own best interest ultimately, can give you a path out of this material world, suffering, and go back to Godhead, but you refuse to hear Krishna's words, you're adamant, then you fall into these categories. And don't blame me, I didn't say, I'm just quoting Krishna. You're a mudha, a fool and a rascal, or you're the lowest among mankind, your knowledge has been stolen by illusion, and you may partake of the atheistic nature of demons. So that's, a lot of mankind falls into those categories these days. But then Krishna speaks about those who do approach him. The key words are duskritina and sukritina. Duskritina, Prabhupada explained, someone may have some good material qualification. Prabhupada would give the example of the very intelligent scientists who went through school, got a PhD, they learned so much, they really worked hard, but their skill in mathematics and astrophysics, whatever, is used to build atom bombs. And this is actually a fact. You'll find that the huge, what they call Defense Department, military established in America, which almost takes $1 trillion worth of tax money every year now. They have so many departments in the universities and their own research, MIT, where they're just trying to figure out other ways to refine this weapon, the guidance system, and so many different things. So all of that, they're kriti, meaning they're qualified, but it's being used for a very low purpose and demonic purpose. So that's quality here. The mahi aprita jnanas, those whose knowledge has been stolen by illusion. They have knowledge, but it's been stolen in the service of illusion. And then there are those who are just naradama, the lowest among mankind. He describes these in fools, and the out-and-out demons, asuram. But then in the text we read yesterday, Chatuvada bhajante mam, he gives very positive encouragement to those who somehow or other approach him, or even just go to church, and they pray for, give us our daily bread, or somehow or other they're in trouble, so many troubles come, my child came out with cancer, or whatever, please, I need the rent money. There's a million different things that can happen, and you can go to God to pray for it. Or you can ignore that and think that's just a myth and try to do it on your own material. So those who at least approach God, they have some sense as a higher controller who can bestow things, they're on the sukriti side, the pious side. But there's gradations. And he spoke yesterday about those, or in the purport, Prabhupada described the Arto and the Gigyasur, or Arto and Artarti. Arta means those who are suffering. Arti means those whose purpose is to get some wealth, something valuable. And it may be for a good purpose, for paying their rent, whatever, but that's their motivation. So these are so many people, just the very idea of there being a higher power who's running everything, who can, if I worship him properly and go to church, then he'll bestow the necessities of life on me. That kind of thing. That's a basic principle that pious people have, that there's a supreme controller, and I should try to appease them, and pray and like that. So that's good. They're at least on the side that they believe in God and they want to approach him. But then he gives two other categories. The Gigyasur. Gigyasur are the inquisitive, those who are curious. They got this book in the park, and they read it, and they couldn't understand a large part of it, but they're interested. It's fascinating because they're talking about yoga, and I'm interested in yoga, whatever, And so they come to the temple, or they get on the website, more likely, and they Google it, and they're interested and they're curious. So they're in a better position because they're open to hear the philosophy and to be enlightened and actually take up the process. But now he's speaking about the Udara. Let's see. Yeah, he talks about the Jnani. This is the one who has the best quality. He knows something already. He's heard about, and he's curious about, may have read some books on Eastern philosophy or yoga or even the Vedas, whatever. And he heard that the Hare Krishnas have classes, or they have a lot of books, and so they come to the temple with the idea of increasing their knowledge. That's their motive after coming. They're really interested. And they're most pious in the sense of most receptive to the message that can really turn their life around and really, really bring them into the fold of the devotees, so that their life will be really auspicious. So that now Krishna is out praising them, and he says, Udara Eka Bhakti Vishishyate. Oh yeah, we read 17, didn't we? Yeah. Of these, one who is in full knowledge, the Jnani, and then, and Nitya Yukta, always engaged. So this is really a devotee who's coming now to the temple. We read 18. I'm sorry. So out of all of those, these are Udara. These are the most magnanimous. All these are undoubtedly magnanimous, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, and I consider to be just like my own self, being engaged in my transcendental service, he's sure to attain me the highest utmost goal. So he's practically describing the serious devotees at this point. And then he quotes this wonderful verse from the 9th canto. Now, this verse is spoken, as it's said here, by the Lord. And this is some of you may know this pastime. I think some of you really, really know this pastime. And this is what happened with Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. Ambarish was a great king, but he was a great devotee also. And he described that he engaged everything. He engaged his words in speaking about the Lord, his mind in thinking about the lotus feet, his hands in cleaning the temple, his tongue in tasting the prasadam, his ears in hearing about Krishna. He was completely situated, although he was a responsible king. Now, Durvasa Muni, he tends to be very sensitive to his position. He's a great yogi, he has great powers, he has thousands of disciples. And if you're on his good side, he can give you a benediction. I think it was he who gave Kunti the benediction that she could call any demigod. She was just a young girl, and she experimented with calling the sun god, and he came. There's a painting, have you ever seen it? There's a painting where she's like this, she's inside the palace, she's a queen, and but she's a young girl. And she's shocked. There's the sun god in all his glory, shining in her room now. So she got that benediction, and also Draupadi got a benediction. that from him, because she pleased him. She cooked for him or something, and so he gave her a benediction that if you haven't eaten yet, you can feed as many people as come to take your prasadam, And so she was traveling with her 5 husbands. They were in exile in the forest. And this is part of the whole Mahabharata, the conspiracy to take the kingdom from the right heirs, which is Yudhishthira. So they're in the forest, and Draupadi's traveling with them. I don't know if Kunti was with them at that time. And Duryodhana gets an idea. And he also had pleased Durvasa, so Durvasa was willing to do him a favor. So he said, what happened was this thing where he was owed a boon. He said, I don't want the boon right now, I'll take it later. So then he came upon this idea. So now he called Durvasa, here's what I want you to do. You just gather up all your disciples, and he had tens of thousands of them. And you go to this part of the forest where the Pandavas are staying. And be sure to go after lunch, after everyone's finished their lunch, including Draupadi. And then you just show up. And they're being Kshatriyas, and you being a great Brahmin with their disciples, they have a responsibility to feed you and all your disciples, which is a pretty heavy responsibility. So he says, okay, I promise you a boon. So he goes, he shows up. And so they just finished lunch, including Draupadi. And they said, what are they going to say? So, okay, come on, we'll get ready for lunch. They said, okay, we'll take a bath first. There's a nearby river, They all go into the 1,000 disciples, and they're bathing. So Draupadi's, and they were in great anxiety. What's going to happen? Because I've already eaten, I can't feed them, So Krishna shows up, in their distress. He's always following them, and then when there's a problem, like Draupadi's being disrobed and she's crying out, he shows up, in the way most important, in the form of unlimited robes. That's another story. So he shows up and he says, okay, I understand the problem. Just give me a little bit of There's nothing left, everybody's eaten. They couldn't do it. Just go to the pot and see if there's any little sabji there. So, there's always something left. So here, take this. So he took this little piece of spinach, And as soon as he ate that spinach, all of Durvasa Muni's disciples and Durvasa Muni were completely full and satisfied. They couldn't eat another thing. So they were embarrassed that, hey, we can't go for lunch now, so they just slunk away off into the forest. So this is an example of Durvasa Muni, who had all these powers, and in this case it was done for good. But with the Ambarish, he was envious. This is a classic thing, where this is why the problem with practicing Ashtanga Yoga, and becoming very adept at that, is that you get all these powers. You can read minds, you can astral travel, you can get anything you want from afar. Prabhupada even said, a friend of his told him a story that in the modern day, this was in the maybe late 19th century, his father knew a yogi who supposedly had this power, and so he asked his son, who then became Prabhupada's friend, what would you like? So I said, I want a pomegranate from Afghanistan. They're known to be the best pomegranates. And they're sitting in Calcutta or something, 10,000 miles, 2,000 miles away, whatever. So I don't know if he meditated a little bit or whatever, said, look in the next room. So we opened the bedroom door, and on the bed was a freshly cut branch with a couple of, fresh, ripe pomegranates on it. So he had this power. It sounds like a fantasy, but it's true. So this Durvasa Muni, he had all these powers, and he had so many disciples, and yet Ambarish was getting all of this honor. He was being glorified as a great devotee, So Durvasa was envious, so he figured out a plan how he could get Ambarish into trouble. And Ambarish was very strict in practicing Ekadashi. And those who know, we practice our Ekadashi. Prabhupada gave us a kind of a easy Ekadashi, just no grains or beans. But I remember it used to be every Ekadashi was a feast. There would be a fancy feast with no grains and beans, But real Ekadashi means I've done this, it's not easy. You fast from the night before, and I don't think you sleep either. I think you do all, you just stay up all night, kirtan. And then on the day of Ekadashi, you don't eat anything, and you don't drink anything. You just chant. And then that night, you also fast the next morning, at a certain time. As we have the breakfast times, the interval, you can break, usually you break with some liquid, and stuff, and then you eat grains before the. So it's really austere. So this is what he was following, orthodox Ekadashi, And so the time had come, almost the time had come for breaking the fast, and Durvasa Muni shows up, this time alone. He's alone. So there's a tremendous etiquette thing where a Kshatriya must greet a great Brahmin, yogi like Durvasa, and offer him to share the breakfast with him, So Durvasa knew exactly the timings, says, okay, but I want to take a bath first. That's classic, before you eat, after a long trip. So he went in for a bath, but he purposely stayed in there so that the time for breaking the fast, which Ambarish strictly followed every Ekadashi, was expiring. So he consulted his Brahmin advisors, but they didn't really know what to do. So he said, I got an idea. I'll just drink a little water. Water is breaking the fast and not breaking the fast. So many people do. I used to do a Nirjal fast, and then I started with just Jal fast. Now I'm a little too old to fast. But anyway, so he took a little water. Now any ordinary human being, would think, well, how can I be offended? My guest didn't eat before me. That's the big offense, But no, he said, oh, you broke the fast before me, So he pulled out a bunch of hair, threw it on the ground, and created this kritya. I looked it up in the dictionary, in Sanskrit dictionary. Kritya is a female demoness who was like fiery body, And she immediately was directed to go and burn Ambarish alive, all for drinking a little water and so-called offending Durvasa. This is why Durvasa, what his name means? For years I thought that Durvasa, because Vasa I think can mean clothes, means that his clothes were far away, meaning he went around naked, because they sometimes do that. But that's not what it means. Someone said Durvasa means, because Vasa also means your residence, means difficult to live with. Imagine trying to live with someone like that, who if you look the wrong way, he'll burn you with the ashes. Anyway, so what happened was that Ambarish, he was so surrendered, he says, if this is what Krishna wants, then let me be burned to ashes. But Krishna had given him access to his chakra, because this is part of his blessings on him. So the chakra, he didn't ask for the chakra came, annihilated that kritya, and then went after Durvasa. Now Durvasa, if he was really a devotee, he says, take me, Krishna, to be killed by the chakra is very auspicious. But he didn't do that. He started running, means that he was using his mystic powers to go here and there. He went to Shiva, very powerful, said, Shiva, this is my condition. He says, you got the Krishna's chakra, Narayan's chakra after you, I can't help you. Same thing with Lord Brahma. Finally he goes to there's a Vaikuntha planet in this material universe called Dhruva Loka. That's where Chirodakshai Vishnu resides, on the ocean of milk, that's what his name is, Chirodakshai Vishnu. So he went there, and there was Vishnu. And so that's what this pastime is from. He begged Vishnu to please, withdraw your chakra, And he says, there's another verse before this, which I always forget, which means in English that I am not independent. I am under the control of my pure devotees. I can't help you. And then he did this verse here, Sadhavo Vidiyam Mayam. The sadhus, my devotees, are always in my heart, and I'm always in the devotee's heart. I don't know anything but them, and they don't know anything but me. And basically he told them, no, I can't help you. If you want to be relieved from the chakra, you have to go down, back to Ambarish, surrender unto him, and beg forgiveness, and see what happens. And of course, Ambarish called off the chakra, and Durvasa was saved. But this is the power of pure devotion. Something that we never think, it doesn't really compute with us, that you bring Krishna under your control. But this is the time of Damodarashaka. This is how Mother Yashoda was able to bind Krishna, for his infractions. And as we sing in the morning, those who sing the song Namami Shuram, that he's bound not with the ropes, but with his mother's pure love. That's what binds him. And there's a wonderful verse in the prayers of Brahma. Now, this is another story I won't get into, but it's really interesting how Lord Brahma, he was bewildered a little bit in order to bring out Krishna's great glories. This was when Krishna was a little calf herd. He wasn't a coward yet. He was playing with his friends. And the whole thing with the Gasura, those who know the pastimes, there's this big snake, constantly keeps sending these demons, and they have the shape-shifting power. Shapeshifters. So the demon said, okay, I'm going to take the form of a huge python, and I'll just sit on the way there where they always come, and I'll just swallow them up, and that'll be the end of Krishna. That was his plan. So that pastime took place, and the friends did enter in, and they all were unconscious in there. And then Krishna enters in, and the demigods are saying, "Alas, alas, what's going to happen?" Now Krishna. So of course Krishna expanded, and Agasura expired, and the boys came out, and they continued with their lunch like that. So Brahma, he was said, "Well, who is this? Is this actually Vishnu? What's going on here?" So he thought he would test Krishna, his mystic powers. So the boys had become absorbed in having lunch on the bank with Krishna in the middle, and they were enjoying his company and sharing jokes and whatever. So they lost track of their calves. The calves wandered off. They're hungry. Suddenly they said, "Where's the calves? We were charged with taking care of them very well." So Krishna said, "Don't worry. You just sit. Take the lunch. I'm going to go get the calves." So he goes to find the calves. The calves are gone. Can't find them anywhere. He comes back and the boys are gone. What happened? So Brahma's doing his thing. You see? So Brahma had wanted to test Krishna. He was also put into Yogamaya, because he's head of our sampradaya. But he was, because the point is this little boy, with a little yogurt in his hand and a little stick, that's Narayan, that's my master, that's God. That doesn't compute, right? And it doesn't compute for many people out there, But yes, it was God taking that form to engage in the most wonderful, sweet, loving pastimes with his mother, who didn't know he was God, with his friends who didn't know he was God, with the gopis who didn't know he was God. He has to cover that majesty in order to evoke these most sweet emotions, which is really what he's after. He's not after so much the awe and reverence, yes, and please, along with that usually comes some request, please protect me, protect you. Okay, fine, yeah, he responds to that. But this is what he really likes. And so Brahma, after that whole pastime, he says, because what happens is that after one moment of Brahma's time, there's this incredible difference in time span, Brahma lives for 100 years by his calculation, which is, who knows the figure? Remember the figure? 311 trillion, 40 billion of our years. It's a long time. Why? Because his body is made almost purely of intelligence. Doesn't degrade like ours. We got all of this, stuff to. Anyway, so his time is different. I mean, he thinks he's living for 100 years. What feels like 100 years to him is an inconceivable amount to us. So similarly, one moment for him is a whole year for us, on earth. So a year, Krishna was just playing like this. What happened is he said, "Okay, this is Brahma trying to one-up me. I'll show him. So he expands in just exactly in every single boy with their idiosyncrasies, their way of speaking, their way of dressing, even so perfect that their mothers would be fooled. If anyone knows a child, it's the mother, right? But he was so perfect, he had all the idiots. Plus all the calves. The calves also are individual, and the cows, they were fooled. They thought this is their own. So the mothers were, doing what they do and express their love for their children, suckling them and, whatever. But they were actually had the opportunity to suckle Krishna, And somehow or other, Balaram, I always wondered about this, he's also God, right? But he was bewildered. He couldn't figure out what's going on the whole year. So what's this? There seems to be an increasing flood of love here going on between the calves and the boys. So he was bewildered. He was surprised. And then the day before the year was up, and Brahma came back, Krishna explained everything to him. That this is actually all you, Krishna. So then Brahma comes back, and he's bewildered now. This is it's called Brahma Vimohan Lila. The Lila in which Brahma is bewildered. So now he's really bewildered. So I thought I put them away in the cave. He got them hidden away somewhere under mystic slumber. He's not hurting anybody. So he checked on them, and there they were. And then he comes back, and there's another set. exactly like the first set, and goes back, and then he's just like, he couldn't figure it out. So finally, Krishna expands into Vishnu forms. All the calves and all the boys suddenly turn into four-handed Vishnu forms. And all of the living entities and even the trees and the grass are worshipping the Vishnu forms as a seed, and Brahma's just like, he's bewildered, totally. So finally he realized, this really is God. He has one famous verse, Narayanastvam nahi sarvadeyanam. Isn't it indeed true that yes, you are Narayan, this little boy with the fruit in his hand and the flute tucked on the fruit and flute, So then he has these prayers. And these prayers, chapter 14 of the 10th canto, they're very, how should I say, they're very famous, and there's a lot of commentary on them. And there's a wonderful chapter in the Krishna book. And I think it's the third one that is especially important, and Prabhupada would always quote, and it's exactly in this mood of conquering the unconquerable Lord. How can you conquer the unconquerable? Krishna is ajita, but by this method you can conquer him. So he gives a formula. So he says, Jnane piyasam udapasya namanta eva. And here we're back to the theme here, because Krishna's talking about the jnani, right? So Jnane piyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaditam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shuddhigatam tanuvan manobi ye prayaso ajita jito prasitais trilokyam. So in all three worlds, this is the only way that you can conquer the unconquerable Lord. So the first thing is, throw far away your attempts at speculation to try to figure out who is God, how does this creation come about. In other words, just try to, on your own, that's not the way to do it. On your own, you'll never be able to figure it out. You'll just make so many mistakes. So that's the first thing. So what do? You have to surrender. You have to surrender unto the pure devotee of Krishna. Sun, it's called sun, it's sun mukaditam. From their mouth they're speaking, as Prabhupada spoke all these purports, bhavadiya vartam. What are they speaking? News about you. They're speaking about you, Krishna. This is a prayer directly to little Krishna, big forehanded Brahma, just got off his swan. And he says, Stane, so Jnane piyasam udapasya namanta eva. That's the namanta is surrendering. Namanta Jnane piyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sun. Live in this way. Sun mukaditam bhavadiya vartam. And you find that devotee of yours, Krishna, who is speaking purely and who is living purely as your devotee. Bhavadiya vartam. Stane stita shuddhigatam. You listen, you follow the path of hearing. Don't do anything radical. You don't have to leave your household, you don't take sannyas, don't go anywhere. Just add this to your life. Shuddhigatam tanuvan manobir. Now this is a key phrase. You have to serve these vibrations with your body, mind, and words. This is how you prove that you're really hearing them. So the first thing is that they're full. Think of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is also come from the mouth of Shukadev, from Vyasadeva. So that's one set of instructions we can follow. And there's so many things to do and not to do with your senses, with your mind, with your body. So with your body, you have to serve them by following the instructions, the do's and the don'ts. With your words, you need to repeat them. And with your mind, you need to contemplate and try to understand, discuss, and investigate. So if you do that, then ye prayaso, ajita jita, you'll be able to conquer the unconquerable Lord. And that's the only way in the whole universe that you can do it. So this verse, Lord Chaitanya in his conversation with Ramananda Roy, I won't get into that story now, but it was a very advanced conversation. Lord Chaitanya took the role of the disciple. And he gave Ramananda Roy the role of the guru. And Lord Chaitanya was asking the questions. And so the basic question that you ask of the guru is, what is the sadhana and sadhya? Who am I, and what is the goal of my life, and how can I achieve it? Sadhana is a practice, sadhya is the goal of the practice. Our goal should be, the ideal goal is prema, pure love for Krishna, which has everything in its train. By that love, you'll go back to Godhead. That without doubt. But even before going back to Godhead, you'll be able to feel the greatest happiness and greatest bliss that is possible to feel as a living entity. So, and what is the sadhana? attending Bhagavad Gita class. That's a very important part of it. Hearing. This is Jnana Piyasam. You're doing it. I'm not me. I'm not but you're hearing Prabhupada in his instructions. So that's what Krishna is saying here. That the jnani, not those who have speculated and gotten it, but those who are really full of knowledge of me and want more of it, and are always eager to hear and chant about me, they're most magnanimous. Udara. Udara means most magnanimous, most wonderful. And they're always linked up to me, with thinking about me through yoga, bhakti yoga. Mame vanatamam gatim. He identifies with them. They're like my very self. And they certainly come to the highest destination. They come back to Godhead. And he'll continue praising in text 19, which is another super famous verse from this chapter that we can memorize, at least the English. And Krishna promises, he says how rare it is in this next verse for someone to really recognize me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So any discussion on those points about the glories of those who are not just curious, but are serious in understanding Krishna? And we can do that. Yes?
I had a
Dr.
question.
Paul.
Okay, so the 4 reasons that people come to Krishna is money, inquisitive, liberation, and what was the 4th?
Distress.
Distress.
Yeah, that's the first reason, really.
Okay, so it says in the purport, the Lord says that all are magnanimous because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma or a great soul. So if someone comes for money, or in also the example you use for mystic powers, even because, I don't know, from
Something material.
something material, even those people are considered great souls?
Comparatively speaking. Because, you see, one of the things about this verse that we have to remember is that Krishna is saying they come to me, meaning it's not that they come to some vague idea of God or spirituality or something like that, but they're really coming to Krishna, meaning that they're coming in contact with devotees, maybe even coming into a temple, seeing the form of Krishna, and they know that it's Krishna. It's not just God. God is too vague an understanding. Is it a person? Is there a form? Are there activities? What's the qualities? Where do they live? No, just God. In other words, it needs to be that they're coming to Krishna for these things. So that's rare, that someone accepts that Krishna is God and that, all right, I need money, so I'll pray to you. That's the idea.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's a very important point. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Yes, Vajramandala. You have a mic nearby? We should always bring them both out.
To piggyback off his question, is there like if you come for money, is there like a way you kind of make your way up the ladder of...
You mean of these 4?
Well, what he was asking, like you come to Krishna consciousness for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
So if you come, let's just say for money, can you advance yourself up the ladder?
Yes, for sure. And practically speaking, I know in my own case, I was curious, but I was also quite troubled, because I'm not going to get into, autobiography, but my attempts to succeed in the material side had failed pretty much, But I was doing yoga, and I was chanting, I was reading, So Krishna was pulling me, and whenever I went to the temple, I got great relief, So a large part of it was, as just to resolve, a lot of these issues that just seemed to be coming down on me, and all this confusion. So in a sense, I came because I was troubled, but I was also, it's not, like I say, it's not mutually exclusive. I was also curious, And when I got my first book, I read it. I think maybe I mentioned in one of these classes that the first book I got was Krishna book, beautiful book, beautiful paintings. But in the state of mind I was in at that time, which was more or less like impersonal, yoga and stuff like that, it was too much Leela, I was more interested in the philosophy. So the next book I got, I think, was The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which I just, devoured, because it was philosophical, And surprisingly, and I'll just throw this out, I had attended meetings in the Ramakrishna mission, which is very prominent at that time. I don't know how prominent it is now. And they had a very nice place in New York. I think they still have it. And believe it or not, because he was like this, he had this yatamatatapat idea, which means whatever path you want, that's your path. Just stay on it. I said, great. But practically speaking, it meant that within that although it's predominantly impersonalism, they also had a little section for the bhaktas, and they had, and so they even had books. And one of the books they had, believe it or not, was the 11th canto, the Uddhava Gita. Not the full 11th, but the Uddhava Gita, which is a very important part of the 11th canto, Krishna speaking to Uddhava. Winding up his instructions. It's like longer than the Gita in terms of number of verses, not the Bhagavad Gita. So I had that translation, and I was fascinated by it. And I was getting all enlivened. I brought it to the temple because there was a period when I was just going to the temple and not surrendering it. And anyway, I showed it to one of the leaders there. But when he saw who the publisher was, he said, "Well, you shouldn't. You should read our books." But the point is that helped me. I was in the category of also being curious and wanting knowledge. So they're not, and at the same time, I felt a lot of my distress dissipate as I associate with the devotees in chanting. So this is how you can definitely move up. There's no question. And you find so many stories how even inadvertently someone Prabhupada tells a story. There was a meeting, he says, and someone it was like one of these Bhagavat Saptahas where the 7-day readings of the Bhagavatam, which is bogus except in the case of Maharaj Pariksit, who only had 7 days to live. That's what it's modeled after. Anyway, within that meeting, there was a thief. And, he wasn't too intelligent, but he was very attentive. And he heard that in Vrindavan, Krishna is dressed there. His mother sends him out to the forest to herd the calves. And he has all kinds of jewels and things that she dresses with him, So he said, oh, that's great, I'm just going to go to Vrindavan and I'm going to find that boy, and I'll just cajole him and he'll give me all the jewels and I'll become a millionaire, Prabhupada tells it like that. So Prabhupada, and he's serious, this is the whole point, he's serious in finding Krishna, So he goes and he's serious and Krishna appears to him because he's so serious. And there he is with the jewels and everything. So he starts cajoling him, and Prabhupada tells us so sweetly, and he says, where did you get all your jewels? Oh, my mother dressed me. And so he says, well, can you please give me your jewels? He says, oh, no, my mother will be angry, like that. So he says, in other words, he wasn't trying to hurt Krishna or anything, he just thought he could. So finally, he kept cajoling, and finally, Krishna, he says that Krishna gave him the jewels, and by that time he was so purified just by the association that he became a devotee, he wanted the jewels. So this is actually how it works. You come in contact for whatever reason, curiosity, you're in trouble, you just want some prasadam, something. This is a big thing. There was a nice devotee named Gadagaja, who's still with us, I think, lives in Alansha, who was working at the press, and he would always take me down to the prasadam hall, and feed me some dal or something, which I was eager to take. And while I was taking, he would preach to me, like that. So he helped me to get, situated in Krishna consciousness. So that's how it works. You can definitely move up. And the main thing is just like a Jamil, he was like, he'd become really a rogue and a rascal. But he had this special quality of having his son named Narayan, or Jagai Madai, who got the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and so there's many cases like that, both in the modern movement and in history. All right, we have time. We'll just read this verse. We may start with this next Monday too, because it's so important. Bahunam janmanam ante Jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatma sudurlabha. So this is often quoted as a definition of what a Mahatma is, this verse. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Purport. So this is, again, is on the theme of jnana. Jnanavan, one who's truly in knowledge, Jnanavan, he surrenders to me. Purport, the living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life, and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to Him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that He is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from Him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus, he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15 of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Sahasrashirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishvato Vitva Tyatishtad Dashangulam Purusha Evedam Sarvam Yad Bhutam Yachat Bhabhyam Uttam Tatvasye Shano Yad Anenati Rohati. Lord Vishnu has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, and thousands of feet. Entirely encompassing the whole universe, He still extends beyond it by 10 fingers' breadth. He is in fact this entire universe. He is all that was and all that will be. He is the Lord of immortality and of all that is nourished by food. Close quote. In the Chandogya Upanishad 5.1.15 it is said, Na vacho na chakshungsi na shrotrani manang sitya chakshate prana iti eva chakshate prano yevaitani sarvani bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is the life air which is the center of all activities. End quote. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. And because Vasudeva is all-pervading and everything is Vasudeva, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. See Bhagavad Gita 7.17 and 11.40. So there isn't much time to expound upon that. But this is a seminal verse in this chapter. And you can see that the real... how do you say, the essence of the quality of the Mahatma is that he surrenders unto Krishna or Vasudeva, knowing him to be everything. How is he everything? We just read in the chapter, right? This is all his energy. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are what we live in. This is all the energies of Krishna. We ourselves are the energies of Krishna. So where is there a place where there's no Krishna? Every atom has a super soul in it. He's also present, sustaining everything in this way. So when you live in that vision, and you can only do that when you're every moment you're engaging your own facilities and own body and everything you can in the service of Krishna, if possible. Otherwise, you just see it as Krishna's energy. That's how you're relating it to Krishna. So where is that's the highest state of knowledge, to see God everywhere and in everything, but at the same time separate and having his own personality, one and different. So that's the kind of knowledge you try to live in. But it's not easy, because as soon as the desire to enjoy comes up, then the Maya comes down, and you forget to see God, and you're just seeing the energy, trying to engage it. So it's a work in progress. But you're all fortunate souls, reading Bhagavad Gita, chanting Hare Krishna, so you're very much on the safe side. Even what you've already done, however much it may be, is to your eternal credit. So, thank you for listening. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now we'll see Krishna on the altar. And we'll resume. I think I'm going to do that verse again, 19 next week. So important.